भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टवागंसस्तनूभिः वशेम देवहितं यदायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
धन्यवाद. Dear friends, welcome to today's Vimarsh lecture on defining democracy by Dr. A. Surya Prakash. On behalf of the Vivekananda International Foundation and on my own behalf, I thank Dr. Surya Prakash for taking time from his busy schedule to deliver today's talk. As you're aware, we have had the honor of welcoming the country's top experts, leaders, professionals, eminent personalities to interact with the public on issues of national importance at the Vimarsh platform. Today, we also have the pleasure of having with us several prominent personalities who have joined us for participating in today's discussion. I thank them for that. Dr. Surya Prakash is well known to this audience. He's a former chairman of the Prasar Bharati. He's a renowned journalist, author, columnist, and a leading commentator on Indian constitutional, political, and governance issues. He has occupied senior editorial positions in the past in Zee News, Asia Times, the Indian Express, the Inadu group of newspapers, and many others. He is a member of the Executive Council of Nehru Memorial Museum Library, member of the Advisory Council of the Vivekananda International Foundation, among other positions that he holds. He is a prolific author. Many books have been written, penned by him. His notable works include What Ails Indian Parliament, Public Money, Private Agenda, and The Emergency, Indian Democracy's Darkest Hour. Friends, some months ago, the Freedom House of the United States and the VDEM Institute of Sweden brought out certain reports criticizing the functioning of the Indian democracy. In their assessment, India is regressing as a democracy and becoming an electoral autocracy. Authoritarianism is rising, as per these reports. In support of their argument, these reports cited certain incidents relating to the arrest of journalists, restrictions on the freedom of expression, etc. The reports have created an uproar in India. The External Affairs Minister went public, accusing these institutions of hypocrisy and following motivated agendas. The Ministry of External Affairs, I understand, is reportedly mulling a counter-offensive. Last year, the World Press Freedom Index had ranked India at a lowly 142, even as several non-democracies were placed ahead of it. As per media reports, Dr. Surya Prakash, in a letter to the Prime Minister at that time, had made certain suggestions on what the government should do to counter the assessments issued by such organizations. Friends, it is necessary that we understand why certain institutions who are not accountable to anyone, who decide on their own criteria and choose their own time, and they are passing judgments on the world's largest functioning democracy. Why is India getting such negative coverage in the Western media today? Who is setting the agenda? Dr. Surya Prakash today takes forward the ongoing debate on Indian democracy. He is a long-term observer of Indian democracy and democratic institutions. His insights would be most useful. Now I request Dr. Surya Prakash to kindly take the floor. Dr. Surya Prakash. Unmute yourself, sir.
So, am I audible now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry. So, I thank you for your introduction and kind words, Dr. Gupta, and I thank all my friends who are here today for this event. Actually, over the last year or so, I've been deeply troubled by some of these reports which are emanating out of international institutions vis-a-vis India's democracy and the quality of democracy in India and so on. So I have made it a purpose in my life to look at those nations go along. So the first thing is, as you mentioned, the VDEM report. The VDEM report of 2020 and 2021, I have looked at that. And then we have the Reporters Without Borders, that is the Paris-based NGO, their report on media freedom that came out last year. Then we have the Freedom House report, which came out some time ago this year. Now, VDEM is based in the Department of Political Science University Institute, which was which has been doing its reports over the years. And then we have the Paris-based Reporters Without Borders, as I told you, and the freedom, the VDEM report put India somewhere at number 90 last time and now 97 among nations. Reporters Without Borders rank India at number 142. The first four are Norway, Finland, Denmark, Sweden. And so also in the case of VDEM. So let us look at VDEM's Democracy Report of 2020 and the countries which are ahead of India. The first is Denmark. It is at number 1. The Article 4 of the Constitution of Denmark says that the Evangelical Lutheran Church shall be the established church of Denmark and shall be supported by the state. The state has a duty to support the Church of Denmark financially and in other ways. This is Article 6. So in India, which has secularism embedded in its preamble, is not a democracy according to VDEM, but Denmark, with these constitutional provisions, is democracy number 1. So there is no separation of religion and state, which I regard as very, very critical for a democracy. It is absent in Denmark. Therefore, there is no secular order. And yet, Denmark is number 1. And India, which has secularism embedded in its preamble, is number 1, number 90 last year, 97 now. Then Sweden, according to the VDEM report, is the third best democracy. Article 5 of the Constitution of Sweden says, head of state shall be the king or queen. So therefore, it is not a republic like India. Secondly, as Article 8 in Chapter 5 of their Constitution says, the king or queen cannot be prosecuted for his or her actions. So there is no equality before law, which is very critical for a democracy in my view. So you may say there is a similar provision in the Indian Constitution, Article 361, that is for the period in which the president holds office, we cannot criminally prosecute him. But civil proceedings are possible after a notice of 2 months. So anyway, that is limited for the period he holds office. It is not for a lifetime. Then you have Sweden, Article 4 of the Act of Succession. The Swedish constitution is broken up into 4 parts. This is the Act of Succession. Article 4 of the Constitution says, the king shall always profess the pure evangelical faith, which means the head of state is boxed in. He cannot have freedom of conscience in regard to religion. Then Article 5, the prince or princess need government permission to get married. Here again, freedom of conscience is absent. And I think we Indians cannot ever imagine that we can have such a restriction in our constitution in regard to choice of mate. Anyway, we come to Norway, which is number 5 in the VDEM report. Again, a hereditary monarchy, republican form of government is absent. And Article 4 says, the king shall at all times profess the evangelical Lutheran religion. So here again, there is no freedom of conscience, freedom of choice. And that's totally absent. So secularism is absent, separation of religion and state is absent. And then it says the king is sacred, he cannot be censured or accused. So equality before law is absent. Then we come to Senegal, which is at number 52, way ahead of India. It's a quasi-democratic institution. Then you have Argentina, for example. The constitution of Argentina ordains the federal government to support the Roman Catholic religion. So therefore, there's no separation of religion and state. Secularism is absent, but Argentina is number 44, and India, which is a secular democratic republic, is number 90. So now let us look at India's constitution. The preamble says we are a secular democratic, secular socialist democratic republic. Then we have Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of the law. You have Article 25, 26, the right to profess, practice, and propagate religion. In fact, I want to see if there's any other constitution in the world which makes propagation of religion a fundamental right. Anyway, then you have Article 29, 30, where all minorities, their language, script, and culture, they have the fundamental right to preserve the same. Now, Article 28 in the Indian Constitution is very important, sir. It says no religious instruction can be given in any educational institution wholly maintained by the state. So when I talk of separation of religion and state, you see that in the education field, there's a complete prohibition on religious education in our schools, which are fully funded by the state, and I will discuss that later. Now I come to the courts. They say they have even attacked our judiciary. They say the judiciary is no longer independent and so on. I want to say this, just look at the Keshavananda Bharati case. It's a landmark case in India's democratic constitutional journey in 1973, where the Supreme Court propounded the doctrine of basic structure. And it said, Parliament can amend the constitution, but it cannot touch or abridge the basic structure of the constitution. This is a very, very critical judgment which has protected our fundamental rights and which has made certain parts of the constitution completely out of bounds for Parliament today and tomorrow and ever. Completely out of bounds in the sense that it cannot alter or abrogate the rights that we enjoy. So the basic structure, according to Supreme Court at that time, was supremacy of the constitution, a democratic and republican form of government, about which I have been emphasizing, federal character, secular character of the constitution, separation of powers, individual freedoms. Later, after Keshavananda, there were several other cases like Indira Nehru Gandhi versus Rajnarayan, Minerva Mills, and so on, where the Supreme Court has expanded the doctrine of basic structure and included rule of law, judicial review, and also said the limited power of Parliament to amend the Constitution is part of the basic structure. So all the freedoms that we enjoy, sir, has a lot to do with how our Supreme Court has looked at our Constitution and our fundamental rights and protected those rights over the years. In fact, when I talk about Keshavananda, I want citizens to reflect and imagine an India without the Keshavananda judgment and the doctrine of basic structure, which was propounded in 1973. What would have happened to our constitution? Where would we be? We need to reflect on that. So therefore, the democracy report VDEM of 2020, in my view, must be denounced lock, stock, and barrel for the following reasons. The report says India is moving towards autocratization. I question this, I challenge this. The media space is severely shrinking, it says. And I challenge this as well. India has witnessed a media boom over the past 10 years, and the circulation of newspapers and growth of television news has been just phenomenal. In 2013, the total number of printed copies of newspapers, according to the Registrar of Newspapers, was 256 million copies. In 2018, it was 291 million copies. Television homes has jumped from 160 million to 200 million households out of India's 250 million households. The internet connections, which are 150 million some years ago, touching 500 million. That is what I gather. So, and also, has anyone in VDM watched TV debates in India? The shouting matches, the abuses that go on? Have they ever seen television news in India? And if they have, then they won't be saying that media space is shrinking and this, that, and the other. So therefore, the charge of shrinking space of media, in my view, is totally baseless. Then the charge that freedom of expression is under threat is absolutely laughable. The most abused person on social media, as I see it these days, is our Prime Minister. Just look at the anti-Modi hashtags generated by his opponents every day. We are the most diverse society in the world, not just in terms of religion, but 122 languages, 170 dialects, and our politics. You have the whole spectrum of political support and base and interest in this country across the population. Another fundamental error in these reports is that they hold the federal government responsible for law and order in the states. This is absolutely ridiculous. Anyone who has studied the Indian Constitution will realize that law and order is a state subject. It is the states that administer law and order. It is the states which book those FIRs against persons, you see, who they think have violated this, that, and the other. And whether it is Mamata Banerjee or Yogi Adityanath or whoever who runs those states, they are the people who are responsible for law and order. It is not the union government. And this is a basic flaw in the understanding of India and India's constitutional and democratic journey by these institutions. The other thing, it's absolutely ridiculous. They are unaware that apart from Bharatiya Janata Party, there are 44 political parties. I was just counting the other day. 44 political parties run 31 states and union territories in this country. There are 44 political parties which are in power. And if you say that there is no freedom of conscience and freedom of political freedom and this, that, and the other, how do you explain 44 political parties which are reigning supreme in our states? But this does not mean that there are no problems. There are issues pertaining to media in the states, as I told you, and there are also courts which protect us. And I am of the view that the judiciary is there, and I will be able to explain to you where and how the judiciary has intervened. Another important aspect of India's political journey since independence is that our social diversity has translated into political diversity. In 1957, there were 12 political parties in the Lok Sabha. Today, you have 42 political parties. And this growth of political parties is in fact an indication of the vibrant democratic environment that prevails in this country. Also, over half of the states, as I told you, are run by political parties other than the Bharatiya Janata Party. There are many coalitions and in many governments, there are many caste-based parties, regional parties, Muslim parties, Christian parties. Just look at the coalition that is running Kerala, for example, or the alternate coalition that is there waiting in the wings. Just look at that. Just look at the coalitions that are running in several other states. Regional parties, linguistic parties, tribal parties, religion-based parties, they are all there governing in our states. So, without understanding this plurality, political plurality, social plurality, without acknowledging, in fact, they must be giving us credit for managing this diversity and plurality. Instead of that, I find these institutions trying to run India down, and as a citizen of this country, I feel extremely offended. Further, in my view, only those nations which have the following 8 fundamentals of democracy are full-fledged democracies. I would request Kishan to please put up that slide. There are 8 fundamentals in my view, and unless you tick mark all the 8 of them, I don't think you are a full-fledged democracy. And they are an inviolable commitment to freedom of expression and freedom of conscience, an unambiguous constitutional commitment to secularism, separation of religion and state, republican form of government, constitutional right to equality before law and equal protection of laws, gender equality, right to life and personal liberty, and lastly, number 8, universal adult franchise. I am very happy And I'm a very proud citizen of India. And to say that we have all these 8 elements in our constitution and in our democratic way of life. And I think every citizen of India must analysis of this. You can always go to my website, asuryaprakash.com. Now I will come to the Reporters Without Borders, their report. I mean, this report is also truly amazing. While VDM put us at number 1997, these guys, the RSF guys, have put us at number 142 among 180 nations. That is as low as we are supposed to be as a democracy. Why does India perform so poorly vis-a-vis other nations when it comes to press freedom? We need to look for answers. First of all, one would presume that a good democratic environment is sine qua non for a free press. But strangely, there is little or no weightage in this index for fundamentals of democracy, like a Republican government, an inviolable commitment to freedom of speech and expression in a country's constitution, an unambiguous constitutional commitment to pursuit of secular values, the fundamental right to equality before law and equal protection of the laws, and the fundamental right to life and personal liberty. According to RSF, these things really don't matter. It appears as if RSF does not see the need for any of this while judging whether there is press freedom in a country. This becomes obvious when one sees the ranking of certain nations, which cannot even qualify as democracies, way ahead of India. Here are some of the examples. While the RSF index places India at number 142, Burkina Faso is over 100 points ahead of us at number 36. Who or what is Burkina Faso? This is a country which was identified by the State Department of the US some time ago as a nation where trafficking in persons, the report says, that slavery continued to exist in Burkina Faso and that Burkinabe children were often the victims. And this Burkina Faso is number 36 among democracies and India is number 142. And slavery is an entrenched institution in the long history of Burkina Faso, according to State Department of the US. Then we come to the Republic of Maldives. Please hear me intently on this. Republic of Maldives is placed at number 79. India is number 142, according to the index of Reporters Without Borders. Now, the Constitution of Maldives says it is based on the principles of Islam. Article 9D of the Constitution declares, and please note that, quote, a non-Muslim may not become a citizen of Maldives, unquote. It further categorically states that Islam is the religion of the state of Maldives and no law contrary to the tenets of Islam shall be enacted in Maldives. So here is a nation which says you cannot even be a citizen if you are not a Muslim. So equality before law is absent, secularism is absent, separation of religion and state is absent, and we must believe that Maldives is a democracy much, much superior to India. Maldives 79, India 142. Then you have the Sultanate of Oman, which is at 135, again ahead of India. It's again an Islamic nation. And there, again, the head of state is hereditary and it has to be a Muslim male. That is what the constitution says. Now, when I look at these nations which are ahead of India, we really need to question what is the basis of the RSF report. There is one more nation, Comoros, at number 75. And its constitution says it is to draw from Islam, the religion of the state, the permanent inspiration of the principles and rules that govern the nation. I have nothing against this, sir. May the citizens of Comoros be happy with their constitution and their laws. But I take offense to secular democratic India being put at number 142 when Comoros is at number 75. Now let us look at some other nations. Like I told you, Argentina, it's at number 64, where again the constitution says that declares that the federal government must support the Roman Catholic Apostolic religion. That is what the constitution says. Then you have the Constitution of Malta, which is Malta is at number 81. Again, here the constitution says the religion of Malta is the Roman Catholic apostolic religion. It says the authorities of Roman Catholic Church have the duty and the right to teach which principles are right and which are wrong, and that religious teaching of the Roman Catholic faith shall be provided in all state schools as part of compulsory curriculum. Please compare that with Article 28, which I told you about of the Indian Constitution. Now Malta is number 81, India is number 142. So this goes on. So Greece again at 65. Article 3 of the Constitution declares prevailing religion in Greece is that of the Eastern Orthodox Church, and so on and so forth. So, इसका तात्पर्य क्या है? What do we conclude from this? According to RSF, according to VDEM, non-secular nations enjoy or ensure greater freedom for citizens than secular democratic nations like India. I hope those who run the federal government in India now or later do not draw inspiration from this report. I wish to caution those who are tom-tomming this report to run down India. Please be careful, sir, with what you are saying. I don't think you understand the implications of what you are saying. I hope nobody ever draws inspiration from the RSF report and then starts saying that secularism is not a fundamental requirement for democracy. That's the conclusion that you will draw from the RSF. So there again, I have told you, the Kingdom of Norway tops the RSF list, and I've already told you about Norway. There's no separation of religion and state. Again, Denmark is number 3 in their category. Again, the same problem in regard to absence of separation, what I call separation of religion and state. Now, okay. Then the other thing is, the RSF website claims that press freedom in countries is judged under the 6 categories. On the touchstone of pluralism, it measures the degree to which opinions are represented in media, and so on. RSF wants us to believe that there is greater pluralism in media in theocracies and Islamic states, and states where even citizenship is denied to non-Muslims, that there is greater press freedom there than in India, which is the most, in my view, the most pluralistic society in the world. The second touchstone is media independence, to measure the degree to which media is able to function independent of political, government, religious power and influence. And if we go by the RSF index, religious power and influence on the media in Argentina, Malta, Denmark, Maldives, and so on, or the Sultanate of Oman or Comoros, where the state is wedded to Islam, there the pressure on media, according to them, is far less than in secular democratic India. One can see all the colors of the rainbow in the media bouquet in India, including those committed to communism, socialism, centrism, right wing, RSS, what have you. In fact, it is this plurality which ensures free flow of information and opinion in this country. And without fear of contradiction, I will say that this plurality is simply not available everywhere. There is a virtual free everywhere. And also, this can be seen on the social media as well, where there's a virtual free-for-all with the worst abuses hurled at political leaders. And if you're looking for transparency, you can go to social media. But if you're looking for decency, I will say you please stay away from that place. Finally, the index examined the quality of infrastructure that supports the production of news and information. India is technologically advanced and offers state-of-the-art infrastructure for those who want it. Also, because of its leadership in information technology, Indian media companies are building robust social media platforms to take their businesses to other platforms. So that is, as I see, the growth of Indian media, which is just truly phenomenal. But Neither VDEM nor Reporters Without Borders are willing to acknowledge this. Now I come to the VDEM report of 2021. The world's largest democracy, India, has turned into an electoral autocracy, according to VDEM. And according to VDEM, the overall, the freedom and fairness of elections was hard hit. Please cheer me on this. VDEM says the freedom and fairness of elections was hard hit in the last Lok Sabha election held in 2019, leading to a downgrading of the country to an electoral autocracy. As a citizen of this country, I will register a strong protest at anyone who raises a finger at our electoral system and the fairness of and free and fair elections that we hold here. No other country can do it the way we do. India is now, according to them, as autocratic as Pakistan, and this is absolutely laughable. This year too, it is Denmark, Sweden, Norway at the top of the VDEM index, and Maldives, where I have already told you what the Maldives constitution says, is at number 76, whereas India, democratic secular India, is number 97. Burkina Faso is at 57. So the report raises serious doubts about the integrity of India's elections, and this must be challenged. It claims the 2019 results indicate the decline of free and fair elections. I will say that every citizen of India must lodge a strong protest against this. Also, it says India is the worst on the following 4 counts. Clean elections index, I will come to that. Freedom of association, I will come to that. Freedom of expression and alternative sources of information. This is according to VDEM. We are worst, I believe, in these categories. In 2019, India had 900 million electors on the electoral rolls. 600 million of them cast their votes in that Lok Sabha election. And in the elections preceding that, in the last 5 years, I'm saying, preceding that in the states and succeeding the 2019 elections, there are, as I've told you, 45 political parties govern us in 31 states and union territories. So, and do you know the number of MPs of non-BJP parties which have been elected to Lok Sabha from West Bengal or Orissa or any of these states, Tamil Nadu and so on and so forth? If the elections were not free and fair, would that be possible? What is this report all about? Never allow anyone to question the integrity of our electoral system. This is my appeal to all citizens of this country. You know, after Mr. Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister in 2014, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal became the Chief Minister of Delhi, winning 67, mark my words, 67 of the 70 assembly seats in Delhi. I will dare anyone to say that elections are not free and fair in India. And are they not aware that some YSR Congress rules Andhra Pradesh, that there is a Telangana Rashtra Samiti ruling Telangana, that the Marxists are in power in Kerala? They are indicating that there is one party dominance in India. This is absolutely false and fake. As I've told you, there are 44 other political parties in governance. In fact, even in the federal coalition, there are a dozen or more parties along with the Bharatiya Janata Party. And they're oblivious of the federal system in our country. This is one conclusion that they have taken that must set us all thinking, not about the integrity of Indian elections, but about the intentions and integrity of these institutions. Both VDEM and Freedom House say freedom of expression has declined. Is this true? Here is a hashtag that I saw on Twitter just a few days ago. You know, the hashtag says, hashtag is lie like Modi. Lie means falsehood. Lie like Modi is the hashtag. Those using this hashtag accused him of frequently making false statements. He's constantly criticized and demonized on Twitter. Mocking at him, one Twitter handle says, Bal Narendra gave idea of gravity to Newton. Another morphed a famous photograph of a kid holding Mahatma Gandhi's staff and leading the way and put Modi Jr. in the kid's place. Another called him Layendra Modi. Then there's another Twitter handle which calls him Fakendra. He's supposed to be Fakendra Modi. And there is no freedom of expression in India. Freedom House, Reporters Without Borders. Sirs, please go on to Twitter and have a look now what is going on. This is not just about Mr. Modi. Just see what people are saying about his opponents, like Mr. Rahul Gandhi, about Mamata Banerjee, about others. India, this is, as Amartya Sen said, this is the argumentative nation. And that buzz you can see on social media. All our chief ministers and prime minister and other ministers are wholesale criticized day in, day out on social media. And you are saying there is no freedom of expression? Now, when some satyagrahis of the farmers at the Delhi border, they died. And that is very sad, you know, when you are offering satyagraha, when you are, you know, in this thing, protesting against something, and the person dies in the course of that protest. It's a very sad thing. But can we call that genocide? So there were people who were running that hashtag, accusing the Prime Minister of genocide because some satyagrahis were died at the protesting site. Some time ago, there was a hashtag accusing him, and so on. So anyway, the platforms are absolutely vulgar and so on and so forth, that I'm sure all of you are aware. Now I'll come to, they say that freedom of assembly has declined. In fact, the other day I had gone to Mussoorie and Landor. While driving back, the Gazipur border is closed because there is freedom of assembly and the farmers are protesting there. It took me 1.5 hours to cross that point. I had to go into the gullies of Gazipur to reach Delhi. I lost 1.5 hours in travel time. So freedom of assembly has declined is absolutely false. Then they say individuals cannot freely express their political views, and I totally disagree with that. Then they say freedom of movement has declined. This is laughable. Indians travel all over the place for education, employment. Just look at the number of Kashmiri boys and girls who are studying and who are employed or who are in trade in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka. I have seen them in Hampi ruins. They are traders, Kashmiri traders there. What do you mean by freedom of movement is paralyzed in India? So therefore, I am sorry to say that this is these are reports that are highly objectionable. Now I will just conclude with 1 or 2 other points. Freedom House places India at number 67 and says we are only a partly free nation. But more dangerous, it separates Indian Kashmir, our state of Jammu, our union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, it separates it and gives it 27 marks. I regard this as an assault on India's territorial integrity. No institution or nation has any business to separate a part of our geography and classify it separately. Nobody has a right to slice off a part of our nation and classify it separately. How will the Americans like if I or some institution in India were to separate Texas, which anyway was not part of America at one point of time, or California, and show freedom and other entity aspects there separately from the United States of America? They must be more responsible. Then, as far as judiciary, this is the last point. The judiciary has failed, they say. Please read the recent judgment of Supreme Court in the Patricia Mukim case. Supreme Court quashed the FIR against her. She is the editor of Shillong Times. She put out a Facebook tweet where she said that non-tribal youth were being harassed and beaten up by tribal youth. Then some tribal leaders lodged an FIR against her, and she moved the High Court. She didn't get relief. She moved the Supreme Court. And you know what the Supreme Court said? The bench of Supreme Court said, free speech of citizens of this country cannot be stifled. This is just, sir, 3-4 days ago. free speech of citizens of this country cannot be stifled by implicating them in criminal cases. The analysis of the Facebook post written by Patricia Mukim shows that no case of hate speech is made out. The apex court said that India is a plural and multicultural society, and the promise of liberty enunciated in the preamble manifests itself in various provisions which outline every citizen's rights, including the right to free speech, to travel freely and settle throughout the length and breadth of India. Reacting to the judgment of the Supreme Court, Patricia Mukim said, "I am so grateful for this ruling." Last December, Allahabad High Court rapped the Yogi Adityanath government on the knuckles, because there is a person who on Twitter again, he said that law and order, there is Jungle Raj in Uttar Pradesh and law and order has collapsed. The Yogi Adityanath government filed an FIR against him for defamation and under IT Act. The Allahabad High Court took strong objection to this and said that expressing dissent on law and order situation in a state is a hallmark of constitutional liberal democracy like ours, constitutionally protected like ours under Article 19 of the Constitution. So, sir, that is how the judiciary is protecting our fundamental rights. Therefore, I now conclude by coming back to this whole question of what the core values in our Constitution are. So therefore, they say religious freedom has declined. I've already told you about Article 25, 26, which protects our right to profess, practice, and propagate religion, and to protect our script, culture, and language, and so on. And then finally, as I said, the 8 fundamentals of democracy. I would request Kishan to please put that up once again. I reiterate, these are the 8 fundamentals of democracy, and we have it, India has it, and that is what is protecting us and giving us a democratic environment for us to live a liberal, democratic life and to progress as a nation. And therefore, any assault on us, our democracy and our constitution, for me as a citizen of India, totally unacceptable. I thank all of you for having been so patient with me. Thank you very much. And sorry for the video glitch. Maybe I'll come on screen now.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Surya Prakash ji. I think for that wonderful talk, and you have very cogently, argument by argument, demolished the arguments of VDEM and Freedom House and RSF. Now, if you look at the methodology of this VDEM report, so I was reading somewhere that they have essentially 3 country experts for each country. And those 3 country experts decide whether on a particular point, whether the situation has improved or has gone down. So, so if it is India and they are looking at India, various parameters that they have listed. So these are the 3 people, so-called country experts who will decide. So I think the methodology itself is highly suspect. The second is the funding. VDEM is funded by the governments of Sweden and the governments of Denmark, and some little funding also from, I think, even EU, and some project-based funding from the World Bank, etc. So what kind of agenda is there? This is also for us to consider. And if you look at the Freedom House, they get about 90% or so of funding from the Department of State of the United States. So what is their objectivity and what are their methodologies? Apart from the fact that they randomly choose these criteria and randomly assess them and choose the timing, etc. And so there is obviously some motivation behind it, some agenda behind it. But of course, your arguments have been based on the actual the facts of the freedoms as mentioned and rights and freedoms mentioned in our constitution and compared with the others. So I now open this for discussion, and if there are some comments, etc., please let me know. I think I'll look at the chat box. Perhaps there are already some, and we'll take some of these. Maybe 2 or 3 we can take together. Let me see. Now there is a. Just looking at any. There are some. There's one question, and I think does India and Indians need to provide attention to such reports? As by doing so, we are only attesting to such ill-motivated ratings. Yeah. Would you like to say something on this?
You want me to respond, Dr. Gupta?
Yes, if you could. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, we are always, this is a fact of life that we are always troubled, or we are excited or elated or disappointed by the opinions of others. Let us not run away from that. But what I want to say is that in the last 70 years, we have allowed ourselves to be the whipping boys of the Western world. I want to challenge that now. We must now stand up and say, please tell me, sir, you are not a republic. There is no separation of religion and state. And you are lecturing to me on democracy. Why should I take it? I think we need to stand up and say, now examine these things that I am saying now. That is what India must say. And India must also say, this is what, in fact, you referred to my letter to the Prime Minister, sir. I have made a request. We need a top-class Indian institution to do the rating, to do the ratings on democracy. We are the largest democracy in the world, 1,400 million people. We are the most diverse society in the world. Then nobody is anywhere near us. We must rate other democracies. We must give them a score on 1 to 100. How much does the guy get? It's not that we are at the receiving end. I don't want us to be at the receiving end. And the Indian, what India says, that must be the gold standard for democracy. What we say as Indians, our this thing, value in regard to somebody's democracy, whether it's Maldives or Denmark or Sweden or whatever. This is my view.
Okay. Okay. So you feel that we should react and rate. This is the crux of what you wrote to the Prime Minister?
Yes,
that
very
we should
much.
also do some ratings and so on?
We have to do, sir. We have to have more than one institution. We are the largest democracy in the world. Why are we at the receiving end of all these nonsense? We have to stand up and we have to rate other people. Just as we have top-class technology institutions, medical science institutions, we have management institutions. We are, I mean, administrator in the area of administration, governance, we have top-class institutions. And in democracy, who in this world is better placed to make a comment on democracy than an Indian, sir?
Right. Okay. So there are some other, I think, some laudatory comments for your depth of knowledge and presentation, and also a comment on the people don't properly understand the diversity and intricacy of India's democracy, etc. But I would invite questions if people want to engage Shri Surya Prakash on some specific issues that he raised in his presentation talk. Yes. Yes. Somebody wanted to? I heard someone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please. Please go ahead, Srivastava.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I am inspired by very enlightening lecture of Dr. Surya Prakash. Earlier, I had once heard him on emergency. Would he like to elaborate a little bit on emergency and its pros and cons? And in the context of today's debate on democracy, how relevant or irrelevant was emergency?
So the emergency was in the sense in our constitutional and democratic history of India, the emergency is a very dark phase. We should never visit that again, and I don't want that to ever happen. And that is why I referred to the Keshwan the Bharati case. You see, what the Supreme Court has done is it has made certain parts of our constitution out of bounds for Parliament in terms of amending power. You see, under Article 368, Parliament has the power to amend our constitution. But Supreme Court has said, please remember, you cannot alter or abridge the rights that are there. And it laid out the basic structure. It said, you don't touch this ever. And from in the context of the history of our democracy and the history of our constitutional growth, it is a landmark. After that, there have been so many other judgments. So people nowadays are, it has become a fashion now to run down the judiciary. Please don't do it, sir. I don't think people realize what they are trying to say. If you knock off that pillar, where will we be as citizens of this country? For me, this constitution, this liberal way of life, this freedom that we enjoy is so precious for all of us Indians. And it is protected by these institutions. There are aberrations. Many a time, many institutions have failed. I will give you an example. In the habeas corpus case, where, the Supreme Court, the issue before Supreme Court was whether Article 21 could be suspended, that is right to life and personal liberty. There, 4 judges of the court, except Justice Khanna, said yes, it can be suspended. And in that judgment, Justice Beg, you know what he said to Madhu Dandavate and other petitioners who were wanting to be freed? He said, why do you want to be freed? The state is taking care of you in Tihar jail with maternal instinct. Please remember, Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister that day. And Justice Beg, quote unquote, he said, maternal instinct. With maternal instinct, and you are getting good food and you are in a good environment. So those aberrations are there. Later, she superseded Justice Khanna and made Justice Beg the Chief Justice of India. That's another story, sir. I won't go in there. What I'm saying is, the emergency is a terrible thing. It's a nightmare. We should never revisit that. And in order not to go there, we must be proud of who we are. Sir, the Article 28, you cannot give religious instruction in a state school or educational institution. And you want me to compare me with Norway or Denmark, where the constitution says it is your job to protect the church and fund the church. And you want to equate me with that nation or with Maldives or to put me down vis-a-vis these nations. So that is why I'm saying, even those in India who are clapping and cheering Freedom House and Reporters for Borders and VDEM, I want to caution them, please don't do that. I don't think you have any idea where you are going. We have to be proud of our constitution, democratic way of life. Where there are aberrations, come on, challenge it. I'm telling you, the Mukim case 2 days ago. Yes, sir.
Arvind, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
May I say something, sir?
Yeah, who is this?
Arvind, can I make a comment?
I'll come to you, Dinkar. I'll come to you in a moment. Mr. DP Singh, yes.
DP Singh wants.
Sir, all is good with your talk, and I agree we are a vibrant democracy and the report is absolutely useless because of the parameters it takes. But somewhere down the line, I also feel that we are ignoring some things which we should answer and which are staring at us. I believe for a vibrant democracy, one thing that we miss is the excess. The kind of poverty and we have, the access to justice is something which is a distant dream for most of the population. So much so, there is a access even to the administration is lacking. A person cannot go and seek a certificate, cannot ask for so many things. And access to the police station is still a far cry. I believe the excess is perhaps today that we should address between ourselves, but that does not take anything from the vibrant democracy. Kindly shed some light as to how we can have a better access, because access today is something which is far-fetched.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, I will respond to that.
Yes.
Sir, let us look at our journey over the last 70 years. In my view, it is the duty of every generation to add to the democratic value of this nation and hand it over to the next generation. If my son were to ask me, what did you do in your life, your generation? I will say, sir, my generation brought the Prasar Bharati Act. Government's monopoly over radio and television ended, and it was handed over to an autonomous corporation. You can question as to how autonomous it is, whether it is 100% autonomous or whatever. That's a different matter. But the democratic journey has this story of removing radio and television from the monopoly of government. Then come to the Right to Information Act, one of the most revolutionary laws in any democratic country. We must be, my generation should be very proud of that. Deepening the democratic roots. The Consumer Protection Act, amazing what it has done. So there are a lot of flaws, sir. I fully agree with you. Access is a big problem. Bureaucracy is a big issue. But we have to wade through that, fight through that, and get to a better democracy. But for that, fundamentally, we have to be proud of the fundamentals, of the foundations on which we stand. Today, I am talking of the foundation. There are people who will say, but is that the situation on the street? So many people, there is fear, there is that. There are people who will say that. But I will say, sir, we are on very strong foundations. Let us preserve those foundations and build on that, as we have built over the last 70 years. It's not going to be easy, but we should never let go the great values that are there in our constitution and our democratic system. Sir, that's why I said about elections. How dare anybody challenge our elections? Yes, sir.
Sir, that is all right.
Thank you.
All I wanted to know was that let us also not talk only about positives. We should also face our negatives. Now, we are not on an international platform right now. We are sitting and discussing amongst ourselves.
Yes.
And we must also admit certain challenges that we face. All I'm saying is a poor man today does not have access either to justice or to administration or to police. And that is perhaps the biggest challenge of our democracy, nothing else.
Okay.
I am
Thank you.
in complete 100% agreement with you, sir. This is one of the major flaws in our system at the moment, and we must correct it.
Yes, sir.
But that there cannot be any two opinions about that.
Okay.
I think it's very important. And as we progress, we must move towards that. When I speak of right to information and all that, these are small baby steps in that direction. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Ambassador Srivastava, Dinkar?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear
please.
you.
Surya Prakash ji, my congratulations.
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you,
a
sir.
brilliant presentation, and it's a very important topic. I have had to, or I had the privilege of being a small part of, our effort in this direction. I was deputed to assist Mr. N.N. Vora in World Conference on Human Rights,
Yeah.
and we found that the largest contingent of NGOs in the World Conference had gone from India. Out of some 150 or something, 90 NGOs had gone from India. Now, the second shocking part which we discovered, the checks for those 90 NGOs, with perhaps one or two exceptions, in all the cases, it was the travel, accommodation, and per diem was paid by an international NGO based in Delhi. This was Ford Foundation. Now, thereafter, we had decided, and this was, at the height of the Kashmir rounds in the UN when we were under a lot of attack, that we should do something about it. We did something, and I have, I'm very, I have great regards for some of the colleagues who were part of this effort, both in New York and Geneva. But these are things which I would like to discuss with you separately, if you allow me. But one brief comment that, your suggestion for a rating agency is excellent, but it has to be, again, an NGO which is not only independent of government, but is seen as independent so as to protect the government from the negative fallout of the reports or the comments it makes. And the last comment is that we cannot leave this kind of report without a response. And in fact, the noise level will increase. And we have seen the damage it has done in the Human Rights Council in last couple of years, where our version went by default. So I have some concrete suggestions, but I think I would rather not discuss them in this open fora. So I'll take some time with you, from you and of course Arvind, and we can discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dinkar.
And one point I will say, sir, the rating agency, the Indian rating agency, has to be an absolutely independent agency, institution. Independent meaning 100% independent. Independent of government, independent of politics, independent of everything. Is very important.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted.
Yes, Mr. Bajwa, I think that's yes, Mr. Bajwa. I'll come to Sani sir, just a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, thank you. I have two small points. One is, in our system, the voter is not voting so much for an individual candidate. He is voting more for a symbol. And it is actually a symbol which lands up after every 5 years, seeking a vote from that constituency. We need to eradicate that. And I think the best way which the Election Commission is now trying to bring in is through the digital medium, that we can start voting. And anybody, a very large number of people who would like to vote are unable to vote because of the nature of their work. So they will be able to vote. And that will change a lot in our system. And don't start forming little groups and little, comfort zones of yours, and you only go there for seeking votes from them. Now, the second point is that the voters in Maharashtra, this is an example of Maharashtra, and before that, the precedence was in with regard to Karnataka. It's the same situation. They were the Shiv Sena aligned with the BJP for votes. Now, after having the votes, the declaration of the results, for whatever the reason, they changed tack and joined up with the parties which they were opposing. Now, isn't that a cheating on the voter? Should those seats not have been declared null and void, and the whole thing, the whole exercise of voting for those particular seats not carried out again? Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, the aberrations in our electoral system, which you have pointed out, is something which we need to address. But when I reflect over, it goes back to Justice Verma's judgment, I think, in the Vinit Narayan case, where he said that anyone filing a nomination must give the following, file the following affidavit. One, education, assets, liabilities, criminal record. So what I want to say is that, sir, a nation of 1,400 million, we have lot of complexities. It's not as if we are running away from that. I think we are addressing it, but addressing it rather slowly. So these aberrations which you point out, they must be addressed, and we must become a more, robust electoral. We must have a more robust electoral system. About that, there can't be any dispute. But we have come some way, sir. It is not, you don't hear of booth capturing now. In the 70s when I started out as a journalist, my God, whole of Western Uttar Pradesh, Andhra, West Bengal, bombing, booth capturing, bombing, booth capturing. Sab khatam ho gaya hai, sir. A nation as complex as ours, as diverse as ours, and as vibrant and democratic as ours. Our democracy almost borders on chaos. And yet, we have come this distance in our electoral journey, democratic journey. But these aberrations have to be corrected. I have no doubt at all.
Before I come to General Sani, I have a small question. You have also written a book, What Ails Indian Parliament. Could you say something about what are your views on that? And then General Sani after that.
Sir, when I wrote the book, I used to find that, if you take the Lok Sabha, 543 members, the question hour, I started looking at question hour, what goes on. Opposition MPs used to take question hour very seriously. And the ministers would be in a panic the day before, preparing their answers, oral answers and this, that. Over a period of time, the whole thing had degenerated. The other thing that has happened is that there isn't enough time for lawmaking. In fact, in a recent publication, I have given details. I said it is like Maggi noodles. In 2 minutes, Lok Sabha passed a law to establish 7 All India Institutes of Medical Science in exactly 2 minutes. And I have given several other examples. So this deterioration, when you're making law for 1,400 million people, it all comes to a push, and suddenly the minister says, come on, yaar, please help me, I have to see this legislation through, and let's not discuss it. All these things happen. These aberrations have to be corrected. I have had the opportunity, sir, to look at the working House of Commons, House of Lords, the German Bundestag, and I must tell you that we need to regulate ourselves. One of the first steps that have happened in that process is the committee system. I can guarantee you that out of the 23 or 22 MPs in a committee, there will always be 5 MPs who are very diligent, very focused, and who will pin the government down and do a good job. So we have advanced, but long way to go. Our democratic bodies, I'm sorry to say, have become totally dysfunctional. There is a very serious crisis. People of this country are not aware. Sir, in the 70s, when I started out as a media person, our state assemblies, Parliament used to meet on an average for 138 days in the 1960s. It has crashed to 70 days. Our state assemblies, every chief minister has realized that the meeting of the assembly is a nuisance. So what he will do, the constitution requires that he call a meeting of the assembly before expiry of 6 months. So at 5 months, 25 days or 26 days, he will call the assembly. Hold a, aupacharik meeting for 2-3 days. Some hangama, he will tell the opposition itself to create some hangama and close the session and meet again after 6 months. The assembly, sir, which used to meet for 100, 121, 20 days a year, are meeting for 25 to 30 days a year. This is a very, very serious crisis in terms of the working dysfunctionality of our democratic bodies, including Parliament. That is what got me focused on what else Indian Parliament is a product of that. And I have continued to look at parliament and democratic bodies after that, and I have a lot more to say. And it's very, very disturbing. The deterioration after my book was published is even more troubling.
So, why is it that the ruling party does not take lead in this and increase the number of days the parliament meets and come back to 140, 150 days, or even increase? I mean, all institutions meet around the year. So why is this particular institution, which is the highest, meets only for 70 days? And then we talk about, this takes away from the democratic functioning. And
One
particularly in
thing I
the
would say,
states, and particularly in the states,
yes.
24 days.
As far as parliament is concerned, sir, in 1993, we moved to the committee system. Consequent to that, all major policy, all major legislation and demands for grants go to the committee. So that is why the budget session, there's a recess of 3 weeks. So you can say that about 20 days of working of parliament got shifted to the committees. So from 120, 130 days, you can knock out 20 days, it is legitimate. So we still ought to be meeting for at least 110 days. Secondly, I feel very sad that members of the opposition create such a ruckus in question hour. That is the hour, that is, the oversight responsibility of opposition. That is where you can see it. And they create such a ruckus that question hour doesn't happen. I have seen parliament, sir, 30, 40 years ago, ministers were most uncomfortable facing question hour. They were miserable people previous night, and they would doze off when the secretaries would be briefing them. I mean, many who have seen that would remember this. They would just doze off. It's at 9, 10 o'clock in the night. Next morning is parliament. There are 3, 4 questions. And the minister, I have myself witnessed that. They will doze off because the briefing goes on for 3 hours. Today, no minister is afraid of parliament. Our MPs we need to ask them this question. Why are ministers not afraid of you? Why are they not afraid of you? And what are you doing? And what has become of parliament? When I say parliament, it includes all our state assemblies as well. It is very disturbing. And you ask, why is the government not, sir? Frankly, I must tell you, across nations, I don't think governments are so excited about having long sessions. It is for the opposition to ensure that the sessions stretch out, that good debate happens, and the opportunities are this thing, and they are in touch with the parliamentary affairs ministers and get more time and this, that, and the other. There is a very big responsibility on the opposition, which I must say that they have squandered in recent years, and that is not good for us at all. In fact, in terms of sharp, of government, keeping a close watch on government, I think there's a lot of failure on the part of our MPs.
Okay. Janasani?
First of all, thank you so much, Surya Prakash ji. I think it was a brilliant expose, and you brought out all the points in a very, very methodical fashion. My point was that we in India, a very, very vibrant democracy, and as you very correctly brought, second to none, we have created so many institutions. So when you mentioned, I think there is a requirement for us to establish an institution to grade the democracies of the world. We can have it privately funded. We can, what do you call, staff it. We can have the members of impeccable integrity. We can also have the members from elsewhere in the world who are renowned people, rather than the riffraffs these 3, 4 think tanks have collected. And the country's size of Karol Bagh and Paharganj trying to, what do you call, grade us. It's the biggest disgrace. I'm not a flag waving person. I'm not saying that we are angels, but we are democratic, and we are democrat. Our democracy is as functional as anybody else's. To be equated to Pakistan, for heaven's sake, or some obscure country in Africa, because they get 3 jokers, sorry to use this word, from each country, including our country. who have got grudges to settle. And these people, the disgraceful people that they wash all the dirty linen, which doesn't belong to anybody except themselves, out in the open. And then they tom these reports. I mean, this is something which is so ridiculous. So I think you brought out a very fine point. I think this should be funded privately. Something like the reputed houses or this thing, Tatas, etc., anybody. And they should be, what do you call, and to talk about our electoral system. I mean, imagine to talk about our elections of 2019. I mean, this is something which should be not only, they should be tarred and feathered and paraded around in all the respectable, what do you call, places, to bring dispute to a process which has been withheld everywhere in the world. Have they ever seen election taking place? I mean, just imagine, I have taken part myself in the election starting from the municipal committee onwards. And I can tell you today, it is the fairest process ever. I have not seen, as you very correctly mentioned, 1760s have gone, and everybody is able to vote for himself. To put, what do you call, question mark on our electoral process, to talk about, things. I'm not saying we are angels. Of course, nobody is an angel. Everybody has got flaws. But to try and, put us down to that position, and then on top of that, within India, people trying to point out towards that with a gleeful feeling. I mean, this is something what do you call? It is disgraceful, and thank God you brought about it. But I would say, let's take it to a logical conclusion. Let's force the government to make an institution. Let the government sort of take the initiative. Let it be funded privately or whatever. Let it be populated by the finest brains we have got, and we have the best. I mean, I'm not being, what do you call, jingoistic, but we have got the finest brains. Also get the brains from outside, but heaven's sake, not from those countries which can be sort of lost, in one suburb of Delhi. Some decent countries, some big countries, and let's do this. Thank you so much, sir. Sorry, I got a little.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I
Yes,
just respond to General Saab?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please.
General Sawhney, I fully agree with you. But that institution has to be a wholly independent institution. Though, as I must tell you, VDEM is funded by the Swedish government, by the Swedish central bank, and so on and so forth. So also the other institutions. We should not go there. We must have an independent institution, and I'm sure India has the strength to establish such an institution. The other point I want to make, you referred to people within the country who keep flaunting these reports. I want to take this opportunity, sir, to please appeal to them. You are praising a report which is praising nations where there is no separation of religion and state. Please mark my words. The nations where there is no separation of religion and state, you are very excited and you are tom-tomming those reports and those nations and those democracies, so-called, quote unquote. Please be very careful when you do that, because I don't think they have any idea what this will mean to us tomorrow. It is absolutely irresponsible. And I don't want the separation that exists in our constitution today to ever be touched. And as I told you, after Keshavananda, nobody can touch it. But still, I am saying, those people who praise VDEM report, in my view, obliquely, they are in praise of the absence of fasla between religion and state. That is extremely dangerous in today's context. That's all I wish to say. Last point, sir. People who are opposed to the present dispensation at the center use all these reports and tom-tom this. This is not the way. India is under attack here. It is not some individual who is under attack. It is not some party. It is the nation which is under attack. It is our democracy, our constitution which is under attack. I will give you an example, sir. During the Bofors controversy, I was shuttling between Bonn and Stockholm. Bonn because there was this HDW deal where it was suspected somebody had knocked off a 7% commission. And there was a Bundestag committee which was looking at that. And I was in touch with SPD member of parliament named Norbert Gansel. I was there for several weeks, shuttling between two. I went to Bonn to meet with members of the Swedish parliamentary committee that was probing the Bofors deal. Now, when all this happened, after about 2 months, I was returning back to India. This member of parliament, my friend Norbert Gansel, gave a dinner in my honor, just 3-4 of us, his secretary and 1 or 2 other MPs and so on. And at the end of the dinner, he said, Mr. Prakash, are you safe when you land in Delhi? Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister. His question to me was, are you safe when you land in Delhi? I was aghast. I said, what are you saying? We are the most vibrant democracy in the world. What are you saying? That somebody will just machine gun me when I land at Delhi airport? What is your impression of India? How dare you say this? Suddenly, sir, after 2 months of work on Bofors and HDW, this, that, and against the Rajiv government, I was standing up there in defense of my prime minister. I want every citizen to know this, sir. Please separate these two things. You know, there is the Congress party, there is the Bharatiya Janata party. You detest this party, you love that party, all that may be there. But please separate that from India and India's concerns and India's well-being, India's constitution. Please separate that. Don't mix those two things. Praising India and India's constitution is not, you are thinking that is synonymous with praising an individual. That is wrong. The nation comes first for everybody. On that note, sir.
Okay, I will take one last comment and then we'll close it. There is a comment in the chat box from Commander Sani. He says, few years back, I had pointed out the role of Cambridge Analytica orchestration. Now in New Avatar, the new organization is worse. It's funded by arms lobby. So the question that I have is, now that all these media platforms plus these data companies, they have become so big, and many of them have been hauled up before the Senate committees and so on in the US and many other places, even here also. Are these companies the bigger threat to democracy? What is your take on that?
It is a very major threat, sir. In fact, since independence, we have often seen the military industrial complex of America, for example. Its attempts to push its way through to the underdeveloped and developing world and build up. I mean, the things they have done, there's so much of literature on that. So this is a very serious problem and this is not going to go away. But we need to be, I feel, on our guard. And we cannot allow these interferences or influences to get the better of us. But that pressure is certainly going to be there. About that, I have no doubt. It has been there all these years. We must grow strong enough to contain it. I think we are a much stronger nation today than we were in the 50s, 60s or 70s.
Okay, I think, let me see if there is. So we'll now close the session because we are 6:30, and with a big thank you to Shri Surya Prakash ji, who has given us a very spirited defense of Indian democracy and also exposed the hollowness of those comments which are there in those reports. And I think the important point that he made is that we should be careful, even if those, in assessing those reports, because these reports, in the end, if we go down the route that they indicate, we will be harming our own democracy no ends. and the need for a rating agency, etc., to assess on the basis of 8 fundamentals that he talked about. I think that is a very fine and a very a powerful point that he made. But although it also came out in our discussion that we also need to improve the functioning of some of our own institutions. This, of course, goes without saying, but the fundamentals are very strong, and on that, we need not be on the defensive at all. So, thank you very much, Surya Prakash ji, for joining us today, and thank you all the guests that were there, participants, for participating in this session. Thank you very much.
Dr. Gupta,
We have
my sincere thanks to you and VIF, of which I am a part. We had been thinking about this for a long time. Finally, it has happened today.
Yeah.
I was most worried initially because of the computer problems I had. But finally, I think everybody has been able to hear me and in the concluding part also see me. So, and I'm very grateful, sir, to all those who are participating in this event today, very eminent people, our ambassadors and generals and so on, very top bureaucrats and others who really, they're truly the well-wishers of India, and people who have great concern for this country. So I'm really very grateful to all of them for sparing so much time to be on this program and to hear me out. And thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll end with an invocation for peace. Satish?
Yes, sir. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Thank you.